Hey, welcome to Broken World Entertainment, and this is our review for episode 6 of The Rings of Power. Oh, this episode really makes you ask, where is the money? Last week's episode, when Bronwyn is given the speech, it turns out, through a little bit of internet searching and stuff, turns out that the majority of the crowd she was speaking to were copy and pasted. Leading to the question, okay, what the hell did they spend the money on? You couldn't get some extras? And this one does the same thing, because this episode is so dark you can't see shit. We have a battle and you can't see shit. So, we start off the episode with Ardar, whatever, planting seeds before they go to war, which is an elf thing to do. And he says in Elven, he says, new life in defiance of death. Then he gives a speech to the orcs, and a big rousing speech, and he's brothers and sisters, so it's definitely an inclusive speech. And the majority of what he says, I couldn't understand a word he was saying. Between the music playing, they kept going to close-ups of the orcs, and the orcs are all going "Marr" and stuff. And every time they were doing it, you couldn't hear a word he was saying. So I'm sure whatever he was saying was profound and fabulous. So they go marching on the tower. They get to the tower, guess what? The tower's empty. Yep. The whole villagers that stayed to fight buggered off. And here's the funny thing. They left this stone defense that all the orcs and Adar, who's walking in front, have to bottleneck to get into this thing. It's not like they're spread out and walk up to it. They have to go across this narrow bridge, but then, as much as a bottleneck that is, then they have to bottleneck in to the tower. Perfect place to ambush them, but no, they're not there. So the tower's empty. They're looking for everyone. Adar says Don Lemon Elf is still here because he can smell him. He comes out of nowhere. You can barely see him. It's so dark. That's not a black joke. That's how dark this episode is. He fires a couple of arrows into like 2 or 3 of the orcs, kills them, and then shoots a flaming one at the tower. And it starts collapsing the tower. And it crushes a few of the orcs. Adar just stands there and watches, and then you see a shot of where the villagers are. They're literally in a field down beside the tower. Yep. So Adar and the orcs couldn't see all the torches, because it's not like they're standing there in the dark. They've their torches and little fires going. And they celebrate by saying, we're going to go back and make our stand at the village. Their village is practically next to the tower. Why did they leave the defense of the tower? Don't know. But now they want to go and fight in the village, because that's a great idea. Then we go to our Numenorian fleet of a whopping 3 ships. And Isendale he wakes up and he starts feeding the horse. The boats are tiny, and we see that in the next shot, but it's like 10 horses or something, and you're like, where exactly are these horses? Because he wakes up in like an area filled with people, and then he's in a stable, and it's like, How big do you think this boat is? You aren't exactly sailing on something the size of the Titanic. But he goes upstairs. Hellbrand sees him, by the way, when he wakes up and sees him. So then he's on the deck of the ship and Galadriel comes up and she starts talking with him. And he's saying he's just waiting to see land, and she explains that she can already see the land. That in time his eyes will see it, so she's better eyesight and blah blah blah. His father comes over and says he wants him to do something. I don't know. Kind of zoned out. Ooh, excuse me. So Galadriel quickly asks the captain, whose name I can't remember, what happened to his mother, Isendale's mother. I hope I'm saying his name right. I was last week. I can't remember if I'm saying it right this week. It should be though. It is Isendale, isn't it? Or Isildur. Isildur. And he says something stupid about watching sunrises and sunsets, and then says she drowned. And it's like, you could have literally just said she drowned. Where's Queen Muriel? She's looking at a map. That's it for that. Then we are back to Don Lemonelf, who is trying to destroy the hilt of the sword. He's hammering it and it breaks the hammer as Bronwyn walks up, and they start having a chit chat about the hilt, and then they start getting ready for battle again. And have a big... This time, Don Lemonelf gives the big speech, the big rah-rah speech for all the villagers that seem to be even less off this week than there was last week. Guess they forgot to copy and paste this time. And Bronwyn has a couple of words. And then her and Theo have a bit of a talk, and Theo needs a pep talk from his mammy. He wants to fight. She says, well, you need to be in the tavern. And he says, but I can fight. And she's like, I know, that's why I need you in the tavern, to protect those who can't. And then he's like, do you remember what you used to say to me when I was a child? Can you say it again? And it's like, wow. Then we go to Don Lemonelf and Bronwyn talking some more. And he gives her the seeds and tells her the elven thing she seems to know about and whatever. And then the battle for the orcs, or against the orcs, starts. And you can't see shit. Yeah, it gets nighttime again and you can't see anything. Don Lemonelf and some other dude are just up in a tower that you can barely see, looking out into the darkness that you can't see anything. And then you just see one little torch, and then another, and then another. And sure enough, it's the orcs. So the orcs' mission, for some reason, I would assume it's to get the hilt. Well, we find out it's to try and get the hilt or find the hilt. You'd assume it's because the hilt was in the tavern. The old smelly dude, he had the hilt, but Theo stole it. But then he saw Theo with it, so he knows it's no longer the tavern. So did he tell Adar that it's in the tavern? Because it makes no sense as to why they try and go to the tavern. So the orcs arrive, the fight begins. Don Lemonelf has to fight a huge orc who, for some reason, is unarmed, has no weapons. So they're kicking the shit out of each other for a bit. Then Don Lemon stabs this orc in the eye, doesn't kill it. The orc starts getting the better of him. He gets him down. Pulls the knife out of his eye and is going to stick it into Don Lemon's eye, and out of nowhere, right before it's in his eye, Bronwyn saves the day, stabs the thing in the throat. And they're all, hurrah, we won the day. It's like, you honestly think that was it? Well, okay. And then Don Lemon, elf, realizes, hey, this orc's blood is red, not black. And it turns out the villagers who left to go and surrender to the orcs last week so they wouldn't die were made dressed like the orcs and sent in as decoys to die. That was great, wasn't it? So all of a sudden the orcs arrive, the actual orcs. There are some orcs there with them, but it was mainly the humans. They're all sent in, and the big war. Well, arrows start coming in, and people start dropping, and you realise, oh, here comes the actual fight. And then this funny thing happens. Don Lemon grabs a shield. A couple of arrows stick into the shield. This old dude gets hit with like 2 or 3 arrows. He drops. Bronwyn starts going running towards him. And an arrow comes in and hits her in what appears to be the upper thigh. Somewhere around that area. To the point she drops to a knee. And then another arrow comes in and comes through the back of her shoulder. Through her chest. So she was shot twice. Until Don Lemon Elf grabs her and runs to the tavern. Tells everyone to retreat to the tavern. When he picks her up, she's only the 1 arrow in her. Where did the second arrow go? And the only arrow in her is the one in her chest. So then Adar, and the orcs are in the village and trying to get to the tavern. Every single person that's left in the village is in the tavern. Do they decide to burn the tavern down? No. Instead, they just make their way into it, hold them hostages, start killing some of the people to try and get Don Lemon to tell him Adar where the hilt is, because he wants the hilt. Then we get a quick shot of Galadriel and the Númenórean army coming over the hill. By the way, that means that the Númenórean ships, all 3 of them, had fucking warp speed. Because it took them a day and a half. A day and a half to get from Númenor to the Southlands in Middle Earth. Well, whatever. Don't think about it, I guess. And don't forget, these people are all linked thanks to the comet. Or meteor or whatever. The wizard. They all saw it at the same time. So Adar wants the hilt. Starts killing people. It's going to kill Bronwyn. Theo gives the hilt up. What's he called? Adar walks out and calls over the smelly barman. And says, like, here, I have a mission for you. All of a sudden, here comes the Númenórean army over the goddamn hill to save the day. And they all start kicking the shit out of the orcs. Adar jumps on a horse. He buggers off. Galadriel goes in pursuit of him. Hellbrand sees this, picks up a spear and goes off in the opposite direction. So then we just get a big chase through the forest. Galadriel going after Adar. And from out of nowhere, here comes Super Hellbrand, aka Sauron. Shh, don't tell anyone. Literally, he comes from in front of Adar and Galadriel. Throws the spear through the ground, through the horse's legs. The horse trips up, Adar goes flying. Then Hellbrand stands over Adar, stabs him in the hand and says, "You don't remember me, do you? Or do you remember me?" And he's like, "No." And he's about to kill him, and Galadriel stops him and gives The stupidest quote, or I should say one of the stupidest quotes that we've heard in this series, telling them that you can't quench your thirst by drinking the sea. Alright. So she's telling him there's no point killing them. You seem to be hell-bent on revenge. This isn't the answer. And yet her entire arc since the goddamn first episode has been her hell-bent on revenge for the death of her brother. She's out killing every fucking orc. So what happens then? Well then, we go to a few of the lads and they're talking about, oh yeah, we're going to see the mountains. We're moving our armies that way. Some of them are staying. They're like, when are we moving? It's like when she finishes with him. We get then Galadriel talking with Adar. And she wants to know where Sauron is. He gives her this story of he killed him. He split him open. And she doesn't believe him. She goes to kill him. And Hellbrand stops her from killing him. Isn't that exciting? Then we get Miriel and Bronwyn talking, and it's pretty much, you're great, Miriel. No, Bronwyn, you're great. Yay. Don Lemonelf goes over to Theo and asks him what's wrong. He's like, he enjoyed the feel of the power from the hilt. And he's like, well, rid yourself up. And he's like, how do I do that? And he hands him the hilt that's still wrapped up and says, give it to the Numenorians and they'll toss it into the ocean on their way home. And Theo unwraps it and it's not the hilt, it's an axe. Where's the hilt? Well, smelly old barman has the hilt. That was his mission, was to go up. So we see him up. I'm assuming it's at the tower because it looks like the tree. The hilt grows back into the sword and he clicks it into the thing and a flood happens. What does the flood do? Well, the flood waters go down into those teeny tiny tunnels the orcs were digging. You know, the one Don Lemonelf had to crawl through. So these hundreds of gallons of water just managed to go into those tunnels with no problem. Starts popping out in the village out of each hole that the orcs had made to get into the village. The water then we see running down the trench that they were digging. Straight up into the mountain, falls into the mountain, into the lava, kablamo, sets off the volcano. Because that seems to be how volcanoes work nowadays. Bit of water makes them go kaboom. And it erupts. Everyone turns around, sees this thing erupting, they all panic except Galadriel. Galadriel just stands there and watches this plume of smoke and ash and lava and everything coming towards them. Few people are getting minced out of it by falling lava rocks, and the big dust cloud, ash cloud, which does have an actual name, that cloud, I can't think of what the hell it's called, comes down and just boom, you see houses and everything flying apart, and Galadriel just stands there, gets engulfed by it, and that's the end of the episode. So what did we learn in this episode? We learned that you can't see shit when it's dark. We learned that the Numenorian ships have warp speed. And we figure out that Galadriel, Miriel, and Bronwyn are the best as ever. Oh man, you should have seen Galadriel on the horse running through the village in the fight. They were throwing spears at her. They were throwing arrows at her, everything. And she was just matrixing off the horse. And it was ridiculous. Oh, and at one point the captain was about to get killed by an orc. And Hellbrand saves him. Oh yeah, and once the volcano was hitting down, somehow all the orcs got fucking free, start killing a few of the Numenorians, and then we saw a very quick clip in the barn where they had Adar chained up, and he was gone. How he was gone, don't know. Why did it? If he could get away, why did he wait? Don't know. But he was gone. And that's it for battles, by the way. There's no more battles in this show. So you had one battle that was about 10 minutes long, maybe, that you could see about 5% of. It was just so dark. This show is just getting worse and worse and worse. Think we'll have to go back and see if anyone can find copy and paste people this time. Anyway, that's it for this review. Until the next time, cheers. Catch you in the next one.